I need your name and your address. I'll remind council that we're talking about a vacation of a piece of property here, and we are not talking about what is really going to go in there. So keep that in mind as we move forward. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Samuel Brown, and I live at 826 South Harrison, second house down from the lot that's in question. And the neighborhood has always been a mixed neighborhood with rentals and homes, but now it seems to be going to high density. There's one across the street, one across Lewis Street, places that go in with no green space, no trees, nothing but parking lot and building. That's what I fear here. That's what it looks to me like. You need that 10 feet so you can get in those 2 fourplexes and those 16 parking places. You know, that's what goes on in our neighborhood. That's what people do. And Harrison Street, despite the fact the city did a great job of hardening it, it's breaking down again. It was just, you know, it was a wonderful job. It really helped, but that was 8 years ago. And with parking on the street, both sides, it becomes a one-lane street, the same as Lewis Street. If any of you ever drive up and down Lewis Street in the winter, you can't meet a car there. I don't know how you meet a bicycle there, and yet it's the bicycle route. The property that is there is very large, 2 city lots. There's only 3 parcels on the block, each one 2 city blocks. And I think there's plenty of room to build multi-unit apartments there as is. I don't see the need for an extra 10 feet so that we can maximize the density in a fragile neighborhood. Streets don't go through in our neighborhood. You can't drive Lewis Street more than about 5 blocks before you have to turn off and go somewhere else. 8th Street dead ends down at the hospital, doesn't go through anymore. So Lewis has become the arterial. And I just don't think the neighborhood can take that much more traffic. I know that there'll be something built there. There'll be some kind of a multi-unit place, but I just don't feel like it ought to be maximized. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. With that, anybody would like to come up and give us their opinion on this, whether it is in favor or against or just general testimony, please give us your name and let us know what your thoughts are.
My name is Chris Norden. I live at 428 East 7th Street, so that's the block that is tangent to the northwest to the block in question. And we walk that section of both Harrison and 8th Street several times a week, all times of the year, and have just made some basic observations about the traffic flow in the neighborhood, both pedestrian, importantly bicycle traffic, and then vehicle traffic. And again, I just would second a lot of the comments just made by the previous gentleman, that this is a pretty vaguely articulated development proposal in a neighborhood where the balance, I guess you would say, of different kinds of use, different kinds of residents, is pretty fragile, I guess, would be a way to put it. Walking along 8th Street in particular, one notices a lot of pedestrian traffic, a lot of bicycle traffic, and a lot of car traffic. So the idea of adding what might be, what sounds like the desire to expand, or at least have the option to expand pretty close to right out onto the street, would indicate a really large development project, something that really has not been very clearly articulated, with a lot of ifs and maybes about what the effects of that, or rather even the scope of that kind of development would in fact be. I will make this point, that the current owner of that property did not bother to clear the sidewalk in the winter, and we were walking along 8th Street both day and night under fairly dangerous conditions and being buzzed by cars with that much margin, with icy streets and no sidewalk to walk on. The sidewalk was precarious to the point of really worrying about breaking one's neck. So, there again, I think that just by way of an illustration that sometimes a 10-foot block rectangle of space can make quite a difference. And if something is built really pretty close to out to the street, it's unclear to me what the implications would be in terms of pedestrian traffic, the flow the east-west. And if you visualize the intersection of Washington and 8th Street, that's the hospital. So you've got an awful lot of people potentially using 8th Street as a walking corridor, and likewise a tremendous amount of traffic to and from the University of Idaho and downtown as well. So, I think at this point I would just urge the council to err on the side of caution, to be conservative, if I may put it that way, preserve public property until a much clearer presentation is made, something that would indeed be an integrated part of our long-term development plan for the city, rather than just an if and a maybe and a trust us, because ultimately this is someone's idea of a money-making development project, and I don't feel that the public good, public interest, has really been nailed down in a way that makes me, as co-owner of that public property,
could you wrap it up,
feel
please?
secure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name's Neil Cox. I live at 526 East 8th Street. And without knowing what you're going to build over there, I get traffic already, or cars parked on my side of the street, which is across the street from where that's going to be, already from the apartments that are up and down the street on 8th Street. If you put another place in, I guess I'll have to let them park in my driveway then around the corner. Also, just as an aside, I was shoveling my walk the other day, and a lady came by and said, if you lived in an apartment, if you owned an apartment, you wouldn't have to shovel. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm a landlord.
David Pierce, 716 East F Street. Sat here listening to this tonight. First thing I'll say is forget about the shoveling the snow. Nobody shovels snow in this town unless they absolutely want to. We don't enforce the ordinance, so many people just leave their sidewalks. That's kind of out of the question here, but I don't think that was a fair thing to put in. I don't see what's being proposed as being something that's for the public good, at least what we know at this point. Yes, there is a proposal of what would be done with the property, but that could be changed. We don't know that that's what's going to go there. I think the bike route and consideration of space for the bike route is an important thing to be considered. If we knew, and we can't know, unfortunately, what really can go in that property, maybe we'd think a little differently about it, but we don't. So I would tend to think this is not something we ought to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Any others would wish to come up before I come on up, miss? I can't talk to you when you're back there in the second row. We got to see who you are, what your name is.
I couldn't resist. My name's Diane Brown, and I live at 826 South Harrison, in the same house as that man, and lived across the street from the illegal garage for the past 30, 40 years, have lived in that neighborhood for 40 years, and I am totally against this vacation. We have watched the vacation at the illegal garage across the street. We watched what happened across the street, across the alley from the illegal garage. where another apartment went in. We've seen all of the houses in our neighborhood get torn down and huge apartments get built in that space. There's no greenery, and they put the parking in the alley. So the alley is going up and down and up and down with traffic all the time. And across the street, I just have to tell you, this is what's going on in our neighborhood. They're not replacing houses with beautiful, nice houses. They're replacing them with ugly structures. And you may talk about some beautiful design, but an apartment building is an apartment building. And I don't know what this underground parking is supposed to be. Underground on 8th Street or underground in our existing alley. You know, so I'm agreeing with the rest of the people here. We don't know enough about what's going on with this property. We've watched our whole neighborhood disintegrate into ugly apartment buildings. Ugly apartment buildings.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Brown.
That's my opinion.
That's why America's great. We all have opinions. Well, you're going to get a chance to rebut on this, Mr. Heffley. You just wait. Well, I'm going to wait till I hear all the testimony, then I'll bring you back up here.
I'm at 428 East 7th.
Please state your name and address.
Leontina Hormel at 428 East 7th Street. Might as well have the spouses come up. I am appreciating hearing your story about 8th Street on that beautiful corner lot. Is that the one with the beautiful trees? We walk by that all of the time. I was wondering what you thought.
Miss, please direct
I'm sorry.
stuff to us, or I'm going to have you sit back down. Thank you.
They live in a beautiful place, and actually the house that it is, I know that it needs lots of repair, but I've looked at that lot for a long time since that house has been for sale, and it is a craftsman home. I know in a lot of disrepair, but I feel like it'll be a tremendous loss to see that turn into something different, even if it's about expanding it so it's a multi-household owner, lease to own type of thing or something like that. I worry about some of the things that was brought up just recently, and that inspired me to come up and talk about that element, because I have been worried about my neighbors and seeing that it is changing significantly. And I believe in mixed housing. I believe in fair and affordable housing access. We don't have much in this in Moscow, but I think too showing some caution to what existing property owners. And I also know that the house across the alley that's on Logan is also it would be compromised a bit too if there were yet another complex surrounding it, because it's a completely different type of property. So I would ask that the council take that into consideration, that since we don't really know any particular, that the public good is both that right-of-way, the access for cyclists and pedestrians like so many of us, but also just thinking about, where is that balance? Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, you can come on up if you'd like to speak.
My name is Dennis Malali. I live at 443 7th. And personally, I hate to break anybody's bubble, but that house is gone. There's 2 fir trees that are gone, and it would enrich the neighborhood to have some fashionable building built there, because the old derelict that was there was rotted and falling down. It was a piece of junk. I'd like to see something with some kind of aesthetics value to come into the neighborhood and up the value of our property, without upping the taxes, but just to up the value of the property would be great. And I put in for one variance or setback so I could build a shop. Oh, that's 25 years ago. The only one I had to fight was Nancy, because she lived across the street. But other than that, I got the garage put in. That was no problem. And I only needed like 3 feet, of a 10-foot variance. But personally, I'd like to see a nicer house put in there, whether it's a duplex, and I hate to say fourplex, but it's got the room for it. If the guy's got the right for it. The only problem is the parking. There is a one-way street or no parking on the south side of 8th Street, so that kind of shoves all the parking back to wherever they can find a place. And I had people parking beside my house all winter because they were too lazy to shovel 8th Street out and make their own parking place. You know, it'd get all iced up and the cars were coming clear a block away. I keep it shoveled and cleaned out because I keep the drain cleaned out and they use it. You know, I kind of complained about it because they clean the snow off their car and it builds ice dams and floods my basement a little bit, but I live with it. But I'd like to see something decent in there.
Okay, thank you, sir.